Development Solutions Network. And we've recently launched a climate hub, which is it's aiming to work very closely with the Global Innovation Hub. So the idea is to identify pathways for climate neutrality and climate resilience in a systemic context where we have multiple crises. The COVID, the economic crisis and inflationary pressures, the climate crisis, the biodiversity collapse, of course, the geopolitical crisis, the war, and the resulting energy and food crisis in the general context of population crisis and inequality increased crisis. So next slide, please. So what we are doing in UNSDSN, we are measuring the performance of each and every country in the world against the SDGs. And this is how it looks. When you have deep blue, you are better. When you have light blue, you have low performance against the 17 SDGs and the 169 targets within the SDGs. And as you see, we are lagging behind, and the last 2 years, we've faced stagnation. The countries on the whole across the world are not making progress with regards to SDGs. Next slide, please. Next slide. And this is how the SDG on climate action looks like. Red is the worst performance you can have, is stagnation, and as it gets lighter, it gets better. But we are facing very bad performance with regards to climate action. And if you look at the projection, next slide, please, at the projection for 2030, is not good either. This is where we are gonna be at 2030 with current policies if implemented. Next slide, please. So our aim is to mobilize the implementation of announced pledges all over the globe in order to reach the 1.5 degrees Celsius by within the time limit that we need. And to support in very explicit way this target, next slide please, we've created a global climate hub under SDSN that is focusing on providing science-driven support for governments and relevant stakeholders across the world in order to detail and downscale the transition pathways to climate neutrality and climate resilience. And we are talking about technological pathways, policy pathways, and financial pathways, investments and instruments that can enable the transition. Next slide, please. So what we are doing, next slide, what we are doing, can you move to the next slide? Thank you. What we are doing is engaging all the SDSN hubs. We have a hub in almost all countries in the world with 1,750 institutional members, and engaging them into working with us to figure out the transition pathways. And we work in 6 transition pathways, so we claim to operationalize the 17 SDGs and the 169 targets within them in 6 transformation pathways that are consistent with the way governments and ministries are structured. So what are the transformations we need? Education, health, decarbonization, sustainable food, land, water, and oceans, sustainable cities and communities, and the digital revolution. Next slide, please. So how are we doing this? The hub has 9 different units: a climate and data platforms application unit, climatology, climate and energy modeling, land use modeling, climate and health, innovation acceleration, just transition on policies, finance, labor markets, transformative participatory approaches through the lens of system innovation and national living labs, something that Kristen was talking about, and of course, education, training, upskilling, and reskilling. Next slide, please. So very quickly, the first unit focuses on climate data platforms and digital applications, and Professor Yannis Ioannidis, who is leading this, is here, and he is also the president of the Association of Computing Machinery, the global scientific association of information technology scientists. We have projects supporting each unit and, of course, collaborations that are also supporting this unit. Next slide, please. Yes, I'm finishing in 2 minutes. So can you click on the, click. Thank you. So these data platforms things works through combining data from global research. It has an AI-driven infrastructure for gathering information and updating, and creates a community to develop indicators and validate data. And at the moment, there is an already existing basis that brings together, gathers, and saves researched papers, policy papers, raw data, analyzed data, results, and so on the different SDGs, which is a solid basis we built on. Next slide, please. The next unit is on atmospheric physics and is supported by people that are leading the work in IPCC. The next unit is energy modeling, climate and energy modeling. We have many models, some we develop, some others are open access, and many projects that are supporting this work. The next unit is land use and climate, again with many models, using this to identify the effects of climate on the water, food, energy nexus, and land use, and identifying optimal policies. The next unit is on climate and health, both mental and physical health effects. The next unit, I'm finishing. The next unit is on innovation acceleration. Again, many partnerships, one critical one with Innovation Hub, with Climate Hub, and at the moment, also leading two accelerators, one on climate adaptation with more than 130 startups, and the next one on clean shipping and ports, which again has more than 30 startups, but we are creating partnerships with many accelerators across the world. And finally, of course, on transformation. Please go on. And then the transformative participatory approaches, national living labs that discuss and validate the transition pathways, and finally, the unit on education, upskilling, and reskilling to equip the stakeholders with the ability to engage in the transition. The services to the governments are for free. Please engage, come to us, and let us know how we can help your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phoebe, and sorry to push for time, but I really want to also introduce 3 other core partners to the Innovation Hub. So welcome here in front to Mayor Lee Dong-wan. Please be seated, Mr. Mayor. Nathaniel Ammon Blake, who's Assistant Deputy Minister for British Columbia in Canada. And I would also like to invite Ilias Yakovidis, Advisor for the European Commission. but I don't see Elias yet. He might be joining us online, but already happy to pass the floor as part of this third piece, and I said to introduce partners to the hub, to Mr. Mayor. Welcome in our panel this morning, and same question also to you. Why the Global Innovation Hub? Why is it important for Goyang City? What can you bring to the hub? And also, what do you want to take out of the network? What you want to take from the network, but also bring, of course.
반갑습니다. 안녕하십니까. 고양 특례시장 이동환입니다. 오늘 27일을 맞이하여 기후변화 협약에 내용이 오늘 이 자리에 같이 함께하게 돼서 너무 영광입니다. 그리고 COP27이라는 그 토대로 해서 지구가 갖고 있는 문제에 대한 인식을 새롭게 하게 돼서 그것을 우리 고양시의 사례를 통해서 얘기할 수 있는 기회가 돼서 너무 감사하게 생각합니다. 앞으로 나가야 할 길에 대해서 우리 모두가 같이 고민할 수 있는 좋은 시간이 됐으면 좋겠습니다.
Thank you for having me here today at this meaningful event today. Through this event of COP27, I hope that we can attract more attention to the global crisis that we are facing today, and we can and through the example of Goyang City, I hope that we can have a meaningful discussion on what we can do to better improve the world.
Thank you very much. Daniel, if I can call you by your first name. On the Innovation Hub, why British Columbia and why the Innovation Hub? What do the two bring to one another?
Hello, everyone. First, I want to say what an honor it is to be here and how inspiring the last panel was. So thank you for convening this. Can we hear? Yeah? Give me a nod. Okay. So British Columbia, we're a subnational government, so it's a province in Canada, Western province, and quite happy to be collaborating with the Global Innovation Hub. We have a project around digital trust and digital credentials and carbon accounting, and the connections we were able to make just last year here with Goyang City, with Martin at the Open Earth Foundation, with Stanford University and the Catherine and the looking at data in California. And I think the more partnerships, connections we can make, the more realistic the solutions we come up with will be, the more transferable they are. And, oh, there, now I can hear myself. So I think this really provides a platform for connections, for testing ideas, and for pushing them forward. And maybe I'll hand it back.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to pass the floor again to Goyang City. Mr. Mayor, you also had prepared some words. Happy to pass the floor to you for your speech as well.
반갑습니다. 이동환입니다. 고양 특례시장입니다. 오늘 27일을 맞이해서 기후변화 협약 당사국 총회에서 지난해에 이어 UGIH 파빌리온의 특별한 2주간의 여정이 다시 시작하게 되어서 축하드립니다. 그리고 함께 할 수 있어서 영광입니다.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Lee Dong-han, Mayor of Goyang Special City. First, I would like to thank everyone who was involved in making this UGIH Pavilion possible again this year. I'm honored that we can work together here to address a global crisis.
이태원 우리 사고에도 불구하고 이 중요한 자리에서 여러분과 우리의 고민을 나누고자 먼 길을 찾아왔습니다. 달려왔습니다.
Despite the tragedy that occurred in Itaewon a week ago, we have come here to share and discuss this concern with you today.
고양시는 UGIH 아시아 챔피언 도시로서 지난 1년을 열심히 달려왔습니다. UNFCCC와 새로운 방법을 시범 적용하기 위한 협력 사업을 수행하면서 의미 있는 결과를 얻었습니다. 그리고 새로운 경험도 할 수 있었습니다. 또한 여기에 계신 많은 분들과 똑같이 우리에게 닥쳐 있는 이 생존의 문제를 해결하기 위해서, 그리고 낙오되는 사람이 없이 모두가 잘 살 수 있는 도시를 위해 노력했습니다.
Goyang has done all it can to live up to its role as an Asian champion city of the past year. We carried out a special joint project with the UNFCCC, which led to significant results and a new experience for our city of Goyang. And like so many of you here, we have tried to solve the survival problem we face and have worked for a city where everyone can live well with no one left behind.
그러나 현실은 너무나 큰 위기가 우리 일상을 침범하고 있습니다. 올해 대한민국은 유례없는 폭우로 여러 사람의 목숨을 잃었습니다. 반면에 세계 각지에서 몇백 년 만에 기록적인 가뭄으로 고통받는 등 전 지구가 몸살을 앓았습니다. 이제 기후 위기는 전 세계 그리고 인류를 위협하는 존재입니다. 이 위기를 위한 노력은 우리 모두의 생존 과제이다 의무입니다.
But now, a major crisis threatens to invade our daily lives. This year, South Korea experienced unprecedented rainfall, resulting in numerous deaths. At the same time, parts of the world experienced a drought not seen in 100 years. Planet Earth is ill. The climate crisis is a survival crisis that threatens not only humanity, but also the entire world. The effort to overcome this crisis is not only a matter of survival, but a moral duty.
기후 위기의 유일한 해법은 탄소 중립입니다. 특히 온실가스의 주요 배출 원인 도시가 나서서 그 해법을 찾고자 오늘 이 자리에서 여러분과 경험을 공유하며 도시의 지속 가능한 미래에 대해 이야기하고자 합니다.
One such solution to the crisis is carbon neutrality. Cities are one of the prime emitters of global greenhouse gases. We must do our part to find a solution. I'm here today to share Goyang's experience in our carbon neutrality efforts and to discuss a sustainable future for cities.
기후변화 대응을 위해서는 우리 도시에 대한 정확한 이해가 필요합니다. 그간 중앙정부는 획일적으로 정책을 기획하여 왔고 도시는 그 정책을 수동적으로 수행하는 경우가 많았습니다. 그 예로 하나가 화석연료 기반의 에너지 생산을 어떻게 줄일 것인지에 대한 고민 없이 탈원전을 해왔습니다. 그런데 그 부분에 대해서 지양되어야 할 것이라고 생각합니다. 화석연료 줄이는 것에 집중해야 할 것입니다. 도시의 특성을 살린 다양한 방법을 찾아야 하고 고향도 찾아봤습니다.
The first step towards a solution was to thoroughly understand the situation in our own city. In the past, Goyang City blindly adopted the central government's policy to achieve carbon neutrality without taking into account the characteristics special to our city. One of the measures was to phase out the use of nuclear power plants without considering how to holistically reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. However, in order to achieve the maximum impact, we had to find a solution that was suitable for our own city.
고양시는 먼저 온실가스 인벤토리를 작성하고 중장기 로드맵을 마련한 뒤 이행 점검에 추진하였습니다. 그럼 고양시에서 가장 문제가 되는 부분은 무엇일까요? 바로 건물과 수송입니다.
First, we created a greenhouse gas inventory, designed a long-term roadmap, and conducted an implementation review. We found through these results that the building and transportation sectors were the main contributors to greenhouse gas emission in Goyang City.
고양시가 봉착한 문제 중 하나가 노후화된 도시입니다. 주택 상당수가 노후되어 건물 에너지 효율이 낮아 에너지 효율 개선 지원 사업을 추진하였습니다.
Goyang faces a problem of an aging city. A large proportion of residential buildings in Goyang are more than 25 years old and have low energy efficiency. In response, we have launched several initiatives to improve the energy efficiency of these buildings and are supporting residents in their efforts to do so.
또한 신재생 에너지에 가감히 투자하여 우리 시는 에너지 자립률을 12%를 달성할 수 있었습니다. 고양시는 개인 차량 이용률이 전체 이동량의 절반을 차지하는 만큼 내연기관의 대전환도 시급합니다. 17,000여 대 이상의 저공해 차량과 800개의 충전 인프라를 보급할 계획입니다.
We have also invested heavily in renewable energy sources. 12% of all energy consumed by Goyang comes from a renewable source. With more than half the residents still using their cars as their primary mode of transportation, there is an urgent need to move away from cars with internal combustion engines. We have set a goal of distributing more than 17,000 low-emission vehicles to residents and establishing 800 charging stations for electrical vehicles throughout the city.
또한 차 없는 거리를 확충하고자 노력하였습니다. 자전거 도로 410km 개설, 전 시민의 자전거 보험, 공유 자전거를 등을 추진하여 시민들이 도보나 자전거를 우선 선택할 수 있도록 하였습니다.
In addition, we will encourage residents to walk or bike first by increasing the number of car-free zones, building over 400 kilometers of bike lanes, offering bicycle insurance to all Goyang residents, and promoting shared bike services.
탄소 중립은 흡수량을 늘리는 것도 중요합니다. 고양시는 하천 440km의 수목을 식재하고 도시 숲도 조성하였습니다. 장항 습지를 람사르 습지로 등록하여 습지 가치와 보존 필요성을 알리고자 하였습니다.
Achieving carbon neutrality is not just about reducing the amount of emissions, but also increasing carbon absorption. We have planted trees along a length of over 40 kilometers along the river and have actively created urban forests throughout the city. We have also registered our Changhang wetlands as a Ramsar wetland to highlight the ecological value of the wetlands and the need to protect it.
이외의 기후 변화에 적응하고자 하천과 습지가 발달한 지역 특성을 고려하여 유출 지하수를 이용한 시설을 개발하고 설치하였습니다.
Taking into account the regional geography of Goyang, we have also developed and installed infrastructure to store runoff groundwater and rainwater.
이런 노력으로 올해 상반기에 약 10만 톤의 온실가스를 감축하였습니다. 그럼에도 목표 달성이 어려웠는데 이는 시민의 동참이 부족했기 때문입니다.
Through these various measures, we were able to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 100,000 tons. Although we achieved our goal, it was not without difficulty. One major problem was the lack of public participation.
이에 시민 실천연대를 구성하고 연령대별 맞춤 교육도 진행하여 시민 인식을 개선하고자 노력하였습니다.
To promote public participation and raise awareness of the issue, we founded the Citizens Action Coalition for Carbon Neutral and carried out educational work on climate change.
함께 고양 탄소 지원 카드를 출시하여 시민의 기후 행동을 극대화하고자 하였습니다. 에너지 절감에만 집중했던 기존과 달리 적용 범위를 확대하였습니다. 온실가스는 모든 구성원이 줄여야 하기에 이 제도는 시민의 행동 범위를 넓히는 정책 수단이자 선제적 대응 정책입니다.
The city of Goyang ambitiously introduced the Goyang Carbon Eraser Card to provide financial incentives to citizens for climate-friendly behavior. We expanded the scope from just energy conservation to include public transportation, buying local food, and other programs. The Goyang Carbon Eraser Card is not only a policy measure that greatly expands citizens' ability to influence greenhouse gas emissions, but also a preventive measure.
이제 도시는 앞으로 이렇게 행동해야 합니다. 도시는 보다 과학적이어야 합니다. 정확한 데이터를 가지고 분석을 통해 오차 범위를 줄여나가는 정책을 펼쳐야 합니다.
This is how cities must act to build a better tomorrow. Cities must be scientific. We need to collect accurate data, analyze it, and reduce error in the implementation of policies.
도시는 현실적이어야 합니다. 시민과 함께 생활 속에 답을 찾아내야 합니다.
Cities must be realistic. There can be no change without civic engagement. Any solutions that are to be implemented must be able to be by citizens in their daily lives.
도시는 도전적이어야 합니다. 변화를 두려워하고 하지 않고 설득과 돌파의 과정을 반복하더라도 일상을 바꾸고 생각을 바꿔 나가야 합니다.
Cities must be courageous. We must not be afraid of change. We must be willing to change our way of thinking and our daily lives, even if it requires constant persuasion.
도시는 독창적이어야 합니다. 각 지역만의 특수성을 반영한 미래를 만들어가는 게 중요합니다.
Cities must be creative. We must create a future that takes into account the peculiarities of a region.
그리고 도시는 협력적이어야 합니다. 효과적인 정책, 기술, 방법론, 노하우 등이 공유되고 활발히 교류되어야 합니다.
And cities have to be cooperative. Effective strategies, technologies, processes, and knowledge must be actively shared.
이런 탄소 중립을 위한 도시의 역할이 UGIH의 틀 안에서 더욱 활발히 일어나길 바랍니다.
I hope that the city's role in creating this carbon neutrality will continue to be active within the UGIH framework.
그리고 더 많은 도시들이 참여할 수 있도록 확산에 힘쓰도록 해야 합니다. 고향도 이에 힘을 보태겠습니다. 오늘 시작으로 UGIH 파빌리온 모든 세션에서 실천 가능한 많은 행동의 방법들이 논의되길 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
And we need to work on dissemination so that more cities can participate. Goyang will also do everything in its power to help in this regard. I hope that many actionable opportunities will be discussed in all UGIH pavilion meetings starting today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this rich discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Minister. But we'll see both of you later today. And then happy to pass the floor for the next panel. Carlos, who can I pass the mic to you?
Thank you so much, John, for the excellent moderation and for taking us to the next session. We will break for 1 minute. We will have new panelists coming. And in the meantime, we also will try to fix the sound issues that we are experiencing. So bear with us, give us a minute, and we will resume with the next session. Thank you very much, all.
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. A very good morning and a warm welcome to all of you. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to... Can you hear me now? Is that better now?
Yes.
Right, excellent. Good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here to inaugurate the Innovation Hub. I have some speaking notes, but I'll not refer to those. But instead, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge and recognize Rachel, who's a former good colleague of ours and a great mind and thinker in addressing climate change, especially in energy areas. And I have a number of my colleagues, and especially the mayor of Goyang and professor from one of the universities in Korea where we recently met, and all of you distinguished delegates, and many others. So from my side, what I can say is that this Innovation Hub, it's an extremely important platform which provides a very good basis and an opportunity for many stakeholders, especially those in the private sector, to come here to think through innovation opportunities that are out there and move away from the enormous gloom and doom that the media has created around climate change, and focus and reflect on the opportunities that addressing climate change presents to all of us. And that's what it is all about. And what innovation actually means is we need to get to 1.5 degrees. And without innovation, and innovation at scale and the pace that is needed, that climate change deserves, is what we need. So we need sort of breakthrough technology. We need breakthrough innovation in every aspect of our existence, be it energy consumption, be it the way we live, the commute, transport, every action. So we need to really constantly now, every day, every action that we take, we need to think of that, what we are doing with regard to that 1.5 degree target that we have all agreed to, all the governments have agreed to, and we need to maintain that. Because if we don't, the situations that we are facing, that we are experiencing in many parts of the world with just about 1.1 degree already, that's going to get worse. And this is something that I strongly believe in, and I say this repeatedly. Every fraction of a degree of global warming, fraction, not a degree, translates into loss of lives and livelihood. And we are trying, this is what we are trying to address. So there are many, many opportunities in addressing climate change in all sectors, and innovation is the way to go. And therefore this Innovation Hub, and I would like to thank our colleagues Masamba and his team who have built this Innovation Hub, innovation platform, to bring the various stakeholders from around the world to address this existential threat that we are all facing. With that, I'd like to thank you, and back to you.
Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Deputy General Secretary. And indeed, innovation is our mobilizing power towards meeting the challenges of climate change. Innovation is our way to become resilient and climate neutral. And it's not only about technological innovation, it's about systems innovations. It's about transforming our systems, the way we produce and consume and interact with each other in order to become climate resilient and climate neutral. So I am excited to have a very high-level panel here on experts and crucial figures and institutions in this innovation transition. So I would like to ask everybody to join the panel if they arrive from their airport. So Rachel Kyte, please, member of the CPI board and dean of the Fletcher School at Tufts University. Thank you very much for being here. Eesa, Bastaki, Have you arrived? Bastaki? Okay, she's coming, she's arriving. President of the University of Dubai and former CEO of ICT Fund. Olan Swartz, a friend, a colleague, chief executive officer and founder of UNGSII, and Irina Gorbounova, excuse the pronunciation of a lovely name, general manager of M&A and head of XCarb Innovation Fund and ArcelorMittal, an accelerator which is focused on the steel industry, which is extremely challenging. So I'm gonna start by asking why innovation is crucial. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did introduce Roland, yes. So why is innovation crucial? What kind of innovation are we talking about? Technological, financial, systems innovation? Is this transition to sustainability, the SDG implementation, a technology-driven transition, or do we need more? Do we need to engage all the stakeholders? Do we need to upskill and reskill the labor force? Do we need to have a bigger systems innovation? And crucially, where are we going to find the funds for funding the innovation? Is it private money? Is it public money? Is it PPPs? And how would that affect inflationary pressures? How would that restructure monetary and also fiscal policy? I would like to start with you. Many big questions, but please, Rachel, let us have your views on this.
Hello, can you hear that? Hello, oh yes, hi. Well, there were a lot of questions there, so I'll just make 2 or 3 key points. First of all, thank you to the Innovation Hub for the invitation. It's great to see you all, and first day of 2 long weeks, so pace yourselves. Last week there was a report every day. In some days there were 2 reports, and actually, Orvin, you got to sort that out, okay? And you could, at the end of the week, be really, quite downhearted that we're not on track, things aren't working the way we want them to, we're not peaking yet, we're backsliding, etc., etc. And the science is punishing. But I thought it was also very interesting if you read the Systems Lab report from the World Resources Institute, because that went through sort of 40 areas of the economy where we need to make transformative change. And it showed that in each one of them, there is change happening. In some cases, quite substantial and quite fast-moving change. And we are at the point of exponential growth in certain areas. Now, the trick is we need exponential growth, for example, in renewable energy in every market in the world all at the same time. But we can get a glimpse of the fact that innovation is happening, is being taken up, and is beginning to have an impact. So the question is, how do we do more of that? Hi. So where I think we have to focus now is that the policy environment and the financial system does not provide for that innovation to grow at the speed of exponential growth, which is what we need. And in fact, at the Fletcher School, we do a lot of research on innovation, on climate. We have a climate policy lab. We help countries with this. More and more private companies are coming and asking for help to think that through. Which policy instrument do you use in what order in order to speed up the pace of adoption of a technology to get to that exponential growth rate? The financial system is one of the major drags at the moment. First of all, we continue to put money into the things we want less of. Subsidies for fossil fuels are higher now than they were 2 years ago. And I could go on and on and on. The multilateral development bank system will come under a lot of pressure in the next 2 weeks because it simply isn't moving its money out into the markets quickly enough, and it simply isn't taking enough risk in order to allow its resources to leverage private investment. So it's not that we don't have this finance in the system, it's just that the system doesn't allow for big bets to be made on a significant enough basis, on a continued enough basis. So maybe I'll just stop there just to say that there is innovation. It sometimes is moving very fast. We need that pace of adoption everywhere. And then we need the policy know-how, which policies work to be better understood, and a lot of support to countries to be able to do that. And then the financial system is actually dragging us back at the moment, not pushing us forward.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Obviously, the financial system is picking up. Last COP, we had 450 business and financial institutions worth of 130 trillion vowing to put climate at the heart of finance. That's a big change. However, to translate that into real in finance that explicitly support the climate neutrality transition is a big challenge to avoid greenwashing and really find ways to develop financial tools and instruments and frameworks that can really support the clean and resilient transition. And it's not just about financing the technology, it's also about financing the ecosystem services that support our production and consumption, not just the technology. So I will come back to you, Rachel, on that. Then I would like to kindly welcome Mr. Bastaki, President of the University of Dubai and Chairman of WGO, of Academia and Youth Platform Activities. What are the prominent challenges faced by the development of climate and sustainability solutions? And how do we increase finance for the available solutions? Thank you for being with us at the Climate Innovation Hub.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sure. Well, actually, there are quite a few challenges in transitioning any industry and urgency. And it is the same with finance for climate and sustainability. Public sources of finance should be redirected at budget and investment levels. We're talking about 2 levels now. And to make sure that all projects and debt are climate proof, to avoid lock-in carbon-intensive practices and technologies is something that the world are looking at it. On the private sector side, financial institutions have been gearing up to effectively actually contribute to the fight against climate change and to move towards sustainable development. And of course, to talk about sustainable development, it's economically sustainable, should be socially sustainable, and should also be environmentally sustainable. The finance landscape has started changing to accommodate the Paris Agreement goals, but the pace of the change has been insufficient. There has also been acknowledgement of the importance of low emission and resilient development, by the realization of the transition is facing challenges such as lack of effective carbon pricing, reduces the investors' incentive to transition to climate positive projects. The valuation of climate-friendly investments as a transition to the current investments needs to be smoother and data-informed. There is a need to build the capacities of investors to be able to have the metrics, the tools, and policy understanding to be able to build climate-friendly portfolios. The need to manage the just transition effectively might also be causing delays in financial solutions. Divesting from the business as usual and investing in the clean transition should be paired with skill adjustment and making sure no one is left behind. The just transition still requires a lot of analysis and solutions to be effectively implemented in the different sectors of the economy. And of course, the WGO Academia and Youth Platform has already published the latest WGO Green Economy Report talking about green jobs, the upskilling and reskilling. So the WGO knows this problem and tries to fix it. Other than that, there are some challenges. There are, of course, others. But there are encouraging signs. Major development banks have announced the intent to climate-proof their portfolios up to a certain percentage. Climate risk is being accounted for, but hurdles remain, and capacity building with strong leadership is needed to fast-track finance solutions. And when I talk about strong leadership, I mean that the leadership should understand exactly the consequences of this climate change and how to tackle these problems economically, environmentally, and socially. So this is my answer to your question. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes, you can. So Rachel spoke about the policy support of the transition, and we have quite a few. We have the Fit for 55 and Repower EU in Europe. We have the US Inflation Reduction Act. We have Japan's Green Transformation Program. We have clean energy targets announced by China and India. Then the professor from the University of Dubai talked about creating the capacity in the civil society, in the labor market, in the financial institutions, the capacity for the investors to really identify the optimal mixture of these investments that will accelerate the transition. I want to now turn to Roland and ask, what is your institution doing, especially in the civil society and policy sphere, to enable the transition and accelerate this transition?
Yes, I think we can all agree that we are not lacking innovation. We can agree on that almost for every problem there are at least 3 or 5 solutions already existing. When you have the honor of working with the UN in Geneva, there's one entity within the UN universe which is called WIPO. Those who know it are familiar with, this is the entity which is collecting the patents and the innovation, and within the UN universe it is this agency which is one of the few not lacking money. They make good income because there are so many patents existing. And when you meet people like Thomas, Bertram, Eduard and others who are here in the room, you will immediately find out by talking to them that it's not the problem that we don't find solutions to the problem, to our challenges in the world. When I was with Kofi Annan preparing for COP in Copenhagen, we had an advertising group in the room who said that they would make the miracle happen and have a nice ad campaign called Tick, Tick, Tick. Let the world understand that it is actually 5 minutes to 12. I'm not so sure if you ever heard about that campaign, but years later we are still talking about the same things. And that is why I believe it is perfect that Masamba is located in Bonn. Do you know why? Not because Bonn is so known for their engineering or for their finance, but Bonn is the home of Ludwig van Beethoven. And if there's one guy on this planet who managed to not only create music in a way that people still 300 years later like it and get inspired, but who was thinking 57 years, every year of his life, making sure that everybody gets involved and that everybody participates, then you understand why Masamba is in Bonn. And what we bring to COP this year, because I'm fed up with watching COP year by year being perceived as the biggest challenge of what the mayor is facing, what our friend from British Columbia is facing. What you try to do is really difficult. Politicians agreeing from more than 200 countries on certain standards, this is tough. This is not easy. But why are we putting the global focus on this complicated aspect? Why are we not turning every year's COP into a celebration that we do the Olympic Games for climate? And in parallel, we have the heads of states trying to find their path on agreeing on standards which has to be done. But while the politicians do their complicated part, why can't we not celebrate those who are the best achievers on tree planting, who are the best achievers on photovoltaic solutions, like what Thomas is doing in Namibia? The world is so rich of initiatives, of activities. The only problem what we have is we are not aware of them. So my proposal to COP in Egypt is that we take advantage of something what happened 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, the president of Egypt gathered all Grand Muftis of the world in Cairo for one real purpose. He wanted to make sure that the Muslim world and the Muslim leaders are starting to move ahead and not only agree on the SDGs as their leading star, but that every congregation within the Muslim community, not only within the 53 Muslim countries, but with every Muslim community as well, those in Europe, in America, in Canada, and Australia, that they start to think how can they contribute to these Olympic Games for climate. And that is why I'm happy that we have Phoebe here, that Yannis is here, because guys like me have no clue about physics. I have no idea what needs to be done, but promise me, I can promise you that I can turn Masamba's, Phoebe's, the academics' ideas into something which is inspiring for my daughters who are 8 and 11, that they think and dream about, that soon they become a gold medal or silver medal or bronze medal winner on an area, whether it is tree planting, whether it is photovoltaic, or whether it is something completely else. And that is what we need to do. We need to get our heads together instead of being proud that each of us is great in his silo, instead of exchanging, working together and doing things the way Beethoven did. It's not enough to compose the best music. It's only enough when you reach everybody's not only heart, but head and feet, that they want to start dancing to that music. And that is why Masamba is in Bonn, and that is why we will form a nice alliance with Phoebe, with all the academics, because no Olympic Games on climate will function if they are not solidly grounded in academic research. Because who will accept the gold medal winner if there are question marks if this person is really the world best? Thank you.
Science-based climate Olympics next year in Dubai, with the Climate Innovation Hub leading it and the SDSN Climate Hub supporting the science, and all of the academic work being there to assess and monitor. Roland said we have solutions for the problems we are facing. There are some industries where solutions are more difficult, the hard-to-abate industries. And Irina is working and making fantastic progress in the steel industry. So I give her the floor to explain how much she does and why this is crucial. Irina.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone. First of all, Thank you, Masamba and the team, for having me here and establishing such a great platform. I'm also really pleased that I'm speaking after you, because I think it's a great point to introduce the industry perspective. And you mentioned a couple of times you're not aware about things that are happening. And I think this is where, you can hear me, right? And I think this is where I would like to spend the next couple of minutes to explain how innovation is crucial for the hard-to-abate industry and what are the specific steps we are taking in order to achieve, in order to get to net zero. So first of all, before I start getting into our journey to net zero, I want to set some context so that you guys appreciate the situation around steel making. Steel, most of you know and use on a daily basis, is actually a great material. It's versatile, it's infinitely recyclable, and it's absolutely crucial for the energy transition. You need steel for the renewable energy infrastructure, for the construction of solar panels, wind towers, electrical vehicles. So it's absolutely critical that we get steel. But then what the issue, I mean, you will ask, what is the issue? The issue is that currently most of the primary steel is produced through blast furnace route using coking coal, using fossil coal, and that's what leads to very high and significant CO2 emissions. For every ton of steel produced currently through the primary blast furnace route, almost 2 tons of CO2 is emitted. And that, of course, translates into a significant carbon footprint. Steel industry alone accounts for just below 10% of global CO2 emissions. So we have a fantastic challenge in front of us. I mean, it's of course a major challenge, but at the same time, I would frame it as a fantastic opportunity for us to make an impact and to find a way how we can produce steel sustainably. Because what I said, we do require steel, it's just how we produce it. The good news, there are ways to produce it sustainably. And we as a company pledged to become carbon neutral by 2050. We have also a number of intermediate objectives to reduce our carbon footprint by 25% globally by 2030 and by 35% in Europe. And I believe we must accelerate. And we also developed the very comprehensive technological pathways how we can get to produce steel in a sustainable and carbon neutral or low carbon way. First of all, you know that, and you know, you've heard, I think hydrogen is right, left, and center at this conference. So there is a way to produce steel through the DRI EAF, which stands for Direct Reduced Iron Electric Arc Furnace route using green hydrogen. And that can get us to produce steel at a very low carbon footprint. But the issue there is that, you know, we could produce it. Some of our facilities are already green hydrogen ready, but then you really need to have the green hydrogen infrastructure available at a scale so that we will be able to actually use it and produce. And that's the reason we are also pioneering a smart carbon route, because you need to look at the existing facilities and see how we can impactfully reduce our CO2 emissions. So using harnessing bioenergy and carbon capture utilization and storage solutions in order to minimize carbon footprint. And in addition to that, innovation is critical. And that's the reason we launched XCarb Innovation Fund that I'm quite passionate and quite proud that we've done, because since the launch we made a number of very interesting investments. And the reason we launched the fund, what became clear is that while we have a lot of innovation in-house and a lot of interesting initiatives, a lot of fantastic initiatives developed by our R&D, we must also tap into the innovative ecosystem globally and support some of those game-changing technologies for steel making, but also across the value chain to accelerate our journey to carbon neutrality. And that's the reason we launched the fund. Since the launch, we made a number of investments across the value chain. So if you start, you need renewable energy. So we invested in a concentrated solar power company that will increase the efficiency of solar power generation. We invested in hydrogen, a very novel hydrogen technology that will reduce the cost to produce green hydrogen. to much significantly. We also invested in companies around recycling of carbon and using the steel, the off-gases from the steel making to produce bioenergy and biofuel. And final investment we recently made was in nuclear energy, because Phoebe, you just said that renewable energy is likely to become a bottleneck, right, if we want to implement all of our ideas. So I think nuclear must be part of the mix. So that's, some of those concrete measures that we are doing and some of the investments to get us to net zero.
Thank you so much. So we need the innovation. We need the incubation of innovation to become deployable technology. We need capacity building for the technology to be adopted by the stakeholders to know how to use it. We need the financial institutions to finance the whole value chain of innovation, the research, the deployment, the capacity building. We need to identify the financial instruments and investments that can do that. And we need to inspire the civil society to really focus on this transition. I want to ask each of our panelists to use 2 minutes in order to identify their most bright source of hope that all of these aspects of the transition, the innovation, the technology development, the policies, the financial instruments will really be implemented. Because at the start of the COP27, implementation is identified as the one big crucial enabler and challenge. So please, Rachel.
Well, I don't think I have like one bright thing, because I think there's a lot of technological innovation going on. 80% of it, 80% of the technology we need, we've got. We're not deploying it. So we're not deploying it fast enough within the countries that have it, and we're not deploying it fast enough into lower income countries. And I think the question we have to ask ourselves is why, and maybe to build off what Olaf said, if you can't imagine it, then you won't build it. And so for many of our political leaders, they can't imagine it. Now, the students that I have, they can imagine it. Students that we all have can, and so this is going to be the very important thing that we have to do, which is work with the policymakers so that they make some bets on the basis of the technology. But let's go to hydrogen, green hydrogen for steel as an example. So we know how to make green hydrogen. That means that we need to have the policies in place and the financial system in place to tilt the system towards green hydrogen and away from blue hydrogen and other forms of hydrogen. That means that it would be helpful if the EU's taxonomy, the US's framework for guidance to the financial sector, and the People's Bank of China and other frameworks for financial regulation aligned. Because if you're ArcelorMittal, you're a global company, and you want to know that green hydrogen is going to be invested in and taken seriously by the financial sector in the same way across all markets. So that would be a good thing to do. Then you've got to find the multilateral development bank system, which is sitting on, Mia Motley will tell you tomorrow, $1 trillion of finance, which is not being used aggressively enough to crowd in private investment, that makes it worth ArcelorMittal's time to go faster in places where the regulatory environment does not exist, and where all of the attention will be on how to stop financing coal, even though Europe is going to be burning more coal for the next 2 years. But we need, while we ramp down brown financing, to ramp up green financing. So at some point, the policymakers in the countries that matter have got to allow the policy and finance to align behind the technology so that it goes faster. Now, the good news is we can actually do all of this. It is not beyond our ability. The bad news is that the institutions who should be taking the risk aren't, and the policymakers, when they close their eyes, can't quite believe that that future exists. But the more that we have green hydrogen hubs in different parts of the world, so more and more people will have to see this. So my final word is the way that industry interacts with government. Industry is very good at telling government, you know, we can't afford this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. More and more companies, as you said, have come out with net zero commitments. Those net zero commitments now have to translate into a forceful lobby for the regulation that companies need in order to invest more in R&D and to do more quickly. And we see that, ArcelorMittal and others, in every sector there are companies that are leading. You see what Maersk announced just 2 days ago in green shipping. So in every sector we have it. So there's no one thing, and I think that's what makes communicating a COP difficult. But there are reasons to have hope in every sector of the economy, including all the ones that just a few years ago we thought were hard to abate.
Exactly. And all the sectors work as a system. So it's the holistic, systemic, integrated framework that needs to guide us through. Mr. Bastaki, can I have your 2 minutes hope statement, please? Just a minute.
I was muted. Okay. Now you can hear me? Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the questions, very interesting. I can give some good examples of what's happening in UAE. And this is where I think everything is started from here. At the beginning, we had the National Strategic Innovation Strategy of the UAE. It was in 7 sectors. It was in transportation, in health, education, water resources, underlying water resources, renewable energy, that's 2 of them, space and technology. If you look at all these 7 sectors, 4 of them directly is discussing about the climate change and the greening of the society and so on. Secondly, I am proud to say that University of Dubai is the 2nd university in the world to be net zero energy campus. What I mean by that is Dubai Chambers, they invested nearly 6 million dirhams, which is nearly $1.6 million, on solar farm in the University of Dubai. So it's producing 1.7 million. With the parking solar, it produces together 2 million megawatt. So now the beauty it is, first of all, it is net zero energy campus, which we have a LEED certificate. We have also net zero water certificate from LEED. Even we take care of the water, it's recycled completely. And the beauty of it is they have invested their money into the project. We are paying them every year 1/5. So after 5 years, we will recover the whole cost. And then for 25 years later, it will be 0 carbon footprint and also 0 cost. So it's very economically feasible. And we are proud to completely have solar energy in the university. Even at night, at daytime, we feed it to the grid. At night, we get it back. We don't have batteries. We are very green. Even when we clean the solar farm, we have dry cleaning, which we use robots. So I'm trying to say at the end, the university is going according to the strategic plan of the government of UAE. Plus also, the Electricity Water Authority, they have a project. It's the Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park. And the strategic plan is to have the capacity of 5 gigawatt in 2030 with investment of 50 billion. It approximately goes into 13 or 14 billion dollars. So this is how we are looking in UAE. We are trying to make sure that in the future, even His Highness, the President of UAE, said clearly that in our investments, in our, our investments were correct. If our investments were correct, then after 50 years, we'll be celebrating when we export the last barrel of oil. That means that oil is one of those that will be one day forgotten about in coming 50 years. So we are directing towards the clean environment and trying to tackle the climate change issue and trying to tackle also the Paris Agreement. All these together, I think we are a good example to look at.
You are an excellent example to look at. Countries that depend on oil are making the transition and want to be leaders in this transition. And I'm sure the technology will allow you faster transition, faster than in the next 50 years. Irina, you are a light of hope.
I think I agree with everything that has been said in terms of the system-wide thinking. We can't just approach, it's not only about technological advancements, it's about innovative approaches across the value chain. So also the way we're going to fund these technologies, the way we're going to regulate. So I think incremental approaches to solving climate crisis are not enough. Policy and industry and science must cooperate in unprecedented ways to drive this radical transition and radical changes and radical innovation at a scale we've never seen before. So I think moonshot approach is required for that. Moonshot mindset and innovation and looking at the breakthrough approaches, but again, not only in technologies, because as I've been mentioning, I'm kind of trying to create and put these pieces of the puzzle together on the technological front, but then how do we scale? How do we make sure that we deploy, and not just in some countries, but across the globe? So I think this is where we need the system-wide approach and moonshot mindset.
Moonshot mindset, and also a deep understanding of the wealth of opportunities that are made available through this transition. Not just saving our lives and our planet and basically our lives in it, but also a wealth of opportunities for profit, for technological innovation, for further education, for increased social welfare. Where is your hope, Roland?
I have a lot of hope because it's back in the 90s, the book, The Value Reporting Revolution, by the PwC, Sam Di Piazza, and Eccles from Harvard Business School. And I loved the book, but it seemed that I was the only one loving it, because when I took that book to guide and saying, well, look here, you have everything to make more profit if you are finally principle-based, and they all laughed at me. And in the 2000s, they laughed at me, and in the beginning of 2010s, they laughed at me, and then all of a sudden, we got the SDGs. And when you analyze the top 500 stocks existing in the world, how committed they are towards the SDGs, to our biggest surprise, in April 2017, we could show already to the world that 70% of the top 500 were explaining how they spent their money or what they are planning to do in future alongside with one or more of the SDGs. We gave these data to the president of NASDAQ and to Joe Kajikal, who was managing the UN Pension Fund, and guess what? 5 years later, we had a cumulative return of 68%. Financing in the SDGs is outperforming the MSCI world. You want more hope? You have the mayors sitting here. You have the mayors in all the other continents who are dedicated to the SDGs. I know the governor of Mendoza who made a simple rule. He said, whoever wants to make business with my city, if he's not proving that he's a B Corp, he can no longer make business with me. Simple solution. Next year, and COP in Dubai, that we get going with our Olympic Games, and that those who make an extra income from this year's tragedy that they are not only getting transparent on their extra income, but that they dedicate part of this extra income to get the Olympic Games going. And next year we meet in Dubai and we will celebrate the success when Masamba finally met Beethoven to show you how to make this true.
So can you hear me? Yes. So I will try to close in a way not as spectacular as yours, but let me repeat, Rachel, we can do this. Before the COP, we were at plus 3. COP 26, we were at 3.5 in an increase in average global temperature. Before COP27 today, our projection at the end of the century is plus 2.5 degrees Celsius. It's not enough, we know, but we are making progress. And we have the technology, and we have the money. What we need is SDG 17 in action. Collaboration and cooperation between all relevant stakeholders, the politicians, the policymakers, the financial institutions, the businesses, the science and technology developers, the civil society as a whole. Can we make them cooperate? And can we make the developed and the developing world care for each other in a way that they can join forces and save the world? The geopolitical situation is not showing good progress. However, let us try, the people, the scientists, and the politicians that are visionary, to bring everybody together and identify this sustainability transition pathway as the only one that we can allow for ourselves. We can do it, and this is the way to save our lives. All of us. Thank you so much.